Welcome to Pack It Like It's Hot, the official podcast from MJS Packaging, where we dive into real-world packaging insights with the people who know it best, our team, our partners, and other industry pros. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to episode number 5 of Pack It Like It's Hot. I'm your host, Cindy Vogel, joined by my co-host, Greg Clark. How's it going today, Greg?
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Good. Glad to hear it.
On today's podcast, we are joined by MJS Packaging Account Manager Tony Haddeman. We're going to explore the world of co-manufacturing. Welcome, Tony.
Hello, Cindy.
Hello, Tony.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
So, Tony, tell us a little bit, if you would, please, about your background and your space in the co-manufacturing area. What makes you the co-man guru?
Well, 20 years of learning the hard way, I would imagine. A brief background about myself. Was in the Army for 8.5 years. Got out and I really couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I tried dabbling in retail management. So I've been on the end user site as a co-manager for Walmart in the retail sector before I decided to get into contract manufacturing. Had an opportunity to run operations for a up and coming new hot fill, cold fill bottling plant in Dallas, Texas, and been in it ever since. I love it. I've always been associated with one way or the other, whether it's now selling and distributing packaging on behalf of customers, brands, and contract manufacturers, or consulting or building startup facilities that do some sort of in-house manufacturing or contract manufacturing.
That's fantastic. We love to harness those passions. You know, that's what we do here on Pack It Like It's Hot. We find people who love these little nuggets of packaging, and we just get you to talk all about it, right? I want to talk semantics for a minute. And this is something, Tony, that you kind of corrected me on before, which I really appreciated. So we hear co-manufacturing, co-man, contract packaging, co-pack filler. Are these all kind of the same thing, or are there differences in those?
It's a good question. I mean, to be honest, they are very similar in totality. The lot of differences with contract manufacturing in general is it's typically dealt with a lot of different customers, some things being customer supplied, some things being turnkey, some things being internally manufactured on their own brands or own behalf. So that there's kind of some delineation between those different segments. Oddly enough, it's oftenly referenced as contract manufacturing. However, there's very rarely instances of an actual contract being in place other than simplified manufacturing agreements, supply agreements, quality agreements. Some of your anchor customers will have indeed contracts that they try and lock pricing specifically. But yeah, oddly enough, they're very similar and often referenced and overlapped one another with the terminology.
Okay. Thank you for that.
When would, let's say I have a brand, I'm a startup. Is it appropriate for me to use a co-manufacturer, or are these reserved for the Fortune 500 brands that we are familiar with on the store shelves we see every day? Who's going to use a co-manufacturer?
So I've over the last 20 years basically evolved a network of manufacturers of different sorts across the nation. A lot of times you'll have contract manufacturers in particular that you will only see approached by larger established brands just because of their higher velocity, higher outputs, higher MOQs, the investment that it takes into inventory to do business with them. But you also see a lot of the other contract manufacturers that are willing to take startup brands and whatnot. And I would recommend for brands starting up that don't have a significant amount of distribution to utilize services of contract manufacturer. You're going to gain from their expertise, their qualifications, their certifications, their registrations with the FDA, et cetera. Obviously, there's a process of properly vetting them to make sure that they're going to suit your overall needs. However, until your brand's established and has a significant amount of distribution, doing those processes internally are very, very expensive and very time consuming, and quite the investment, capital wise, to really get what you need out of your own resources to fulfill your own brands.
That makes sense. That makes sense. But I've also got to think there's a little bit of maybe anxiety that goes into it for brand, right? They've got this formula that they've created that it's grandma's sauce that we've now got it for, it's ready for the masses. How can a brand ensure that consistency and quality of their product when they turn over manufacturing responsibilities to someone else?
A lot of brands, and I've actually been on this side. I've been on the brand side and had oversight of manufacturing. There's a lot of procedural internally that a brand can do to monitor and safeguard that their products are being manufactured in the right CGMP environment, so certified for good manufacturing practices. And a lot of these adherences that the co-mans have to comply with are fallen under different certifying agencies that are third party. They are often monitored by local food and health departments, state and federal both. So there are a lot of safeguards in place. I mean, if a co-man is not operating properly, they've probably been notified with a warning letter of some sort by the FDA, or you're going to find enough information in regards to how well they've been in practice with a quick search.
Sure.
So you're pretty well safeguarded, but it does make sense to have someone with experience in manufacturing on the branded side to overall, to just oversight and have manage of that process.
And I would assume that a lot of co-manufacturers specialize in a certain industry, right? Like they do a lot of food and beverage, or they do a lot of nutraceutical, versus maybe trying to dabble in everything, or does it vary?
It is pretty well specific with capabilities. Mm-hmm. You're going to find a lot of co-manufacturers that can do powders, capsules, tablets, liquids, etc. But ultimately, all the processes, regardless of how it's being filled and offered for the consumer, it's going to be relatively the same overall governing practices, specifically for nutritional products with nutrition fact panels or supplement fact panels that you find.
Sure.
Let's say I have a brand, a package, and I take it to the co-man. Am I going to lose control over making decisions on packaging, or will I still be able to decide if I want to use a Boston Round or a Cosmo bottle?
That's a good question, Greg. A lot of times what that comes down to is capabilities on behalf of the co-packer, what type of equipment they have and what criteria you need to meet, whether it be size, shape, etc., capping capabilities. A lot of these various packaging requirements require different types of equipment. For instance, if you have a CRC cap on your bottle, they have to have a specialized capper that can handle a CRC cap, ROPP cap, etc. So it really depends on their capabilities. If you validate what capabilities the co-packer has, then you have flexibility within those standards of what you can do for a packaging style, if you will.
So it depends. I'll have that autonomy, but yet I need to work within their parameters, typically, is how this would play out.
Yes and no. Obviously, within their current parameters, you would have to comply with whatever their capabilities are. A lot of these co-packers are willing to implement different packaging engineered specifications for equipment, or adding a different type of capper or et cetera to adhere to what you're looking for ultimately in your packaging.
But I would imagine if they're not equipped to fill tubes, they can't fill tubes. Something like that.
That's right. And, even there are some co-packers, depending on your relationships that and your capital investment, that will allow you to have some flexibility on some things like that if they're interested. It's a collaborative effort. I've even seen instances where, a brand would buy the equipment and then amortize it over the length of their manufacturing agreement. So,
oh, that's interesting too. Okay,
terrific. Good to know.
A lot of co-packers don't want to turn away low-hanging fruit.
That's fair.
So
that's
if
fair.
it's a good opportunity and if it's fair for both parties, a lot of times they're willing to explore.
Okay.
Excellent.
So how can MJS Packaging play a role in helping different companies, brands, find the right co-manufacturing partner?
Good question, Cindy. A lot of it comes down to, what's the end user's target? What's the overall encompassing factors of the brand and product line that you're trying to launch? Is it regional? Is it national? Is it international? Size of the project, scope of the work. What is your distribution factors? I mean, if you're distributing on a product on the West Coast, then it doesn't make sense to look at co-packers on the East Coast.
Right.
There's a lot of variables. Here at MJS, we have a lot of experience on both sides of not only providing the right type of packaging that suits your needs and suits the capabilities of the co-packers, but we also have a lot of relationships with these contract manufacturers that we can bridge that gap and obviously make good recommendations for what they're looking for.
Tony, I have one additional question back to the brands that might utilize a co-man. In your experience, is there a small to medium sized brand that you can think of, without naming the brand, that might have been challenged, and once they landed with that co-man, it was night and day, lights out, brand took off, they focused on their business and let the manufacturing side do the manufacturing?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of my experience in consulting for the branded side, they were struggling with, the lead times, with deliverables, with out of stocks, with, just co-man not really maintaining the conversation with updates adequate, to support their business. So, using my resources that I have developed over the last 20 years, I had other relationships that I could introduce these brands to help them grow and to support their business and find the right manufacturing partner that could meet their needs, both, quality, distribution, on time, communication. I mean, all those things become relative factors when you're trying to grow your business and your brand.
Great. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely. I mean, the network in the industry is actually relatively small. Going to these various trade shows over the last 20 years, you see the redundant suppliers and, from packaging to raw materials to who puts it in the bottle or the package. The who's are out there, the who's are not that you want to avoid. Everyone knows who those players are. So yeah, there's guidance to be had out there for sure.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Tony, for joining us today. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge of this industry. And if we have any listeners out there who have further questions for Tony, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll definitely put you in touch.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tony. Be well.
Thanks, Greg. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to our MJS podcast. Make sure to follow and listen on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Tune in next month when we will be joined by another packaging expert. And remember, packaging solutions are just a click away at mjspackaging.com.